Hi everybody, how are you doing? So welcome to this first live that Illumino IT are putting on. We're going to be doing a challenge this month where we're going to be doing 30 of these, so one every single day in the month of January. And we hope that you can join us for quite a few of these lives. So most of them will focus on the Microsoft 365 suite. And the first one we've got today is just a real kind of introduction to Microsoft Teams. And what we're going to look at is just the different versions of Microsoft Teams that are available. So we only really want to take about 10 minutes of your time to go through this live today, and we will give you some time for questions at the end. And we'll also put the recording and make this available for everyone. So without further ado, I'm going to just quickly share my screen. So bear with me. And I'm just going to share a Chrome tab so that we can run through the different versions of Teams. And especially on this broadcast as well, what we want to do is maybe look at what is a good version, for example, for your business, and what would be most appropriate potentially for your business. So let's share the screen here. Okay, so on my screen now, hopefully you can see the Microsoft Teams Microsoft's overview of the different packages that they have. So we've got a list of these URLs for you in the in a PowerPoint slide. So I will make this available at the end of the at the end of the live. So to start going through this quickly, what you'll see is that there are two categories of team software. So we have the one here for home, so over here, and we have another one for business. So we can click on the business aspect and it will give us some different versions here. So let's quickly go over the home versions. Now these are more relevant, obviously, if you're using Microsoft products either at home by yourself or for your family. So there are three options when it comes to the home version. Microsoft Teams free. So as you can see, there is group calling for up to 60 minutes. There are some restrictions on what you can do within Teams, and 100 participants there. So I'm sure you can all read. So I'm really going to pick out the most kind of, the biggest differences here. So if you actually go for the Microsoft 365 personal subscription, that's for one person, but your group calling, as you can see, goes from 60 minutes per call up to 30 hours per individual call, and you can get 300 people also on that. So potentially you could use this for something more than a personal reason, but there are certain reasons why you may want to go for a more business orientated subscription, and we'll see that in a second. You get lots of cloud storage, especially with this version here. And you also get all of the Office apps and services that come with that. So Teams, as we're talking about here, is actually included in this package, but you also get all of this other stuff. Now, Microsoft do have a really good value deal whereby you can get everything in the individual subscription for your whole family. So up to 6 people, doesn't necessarily have to be your immediate family. You can share this with whoever you would like. So you can get it for 6 people, and that's for $7.99 a month. So you get an amalgamation of all the kind of different features, but for 6 people rather than just for kind of individual. So for business, and this is really what I want to pick up on today more than anything. So we have the Microsoft Teams Essentials. And this, as you can see, there's a very small difference between the Essentials and the Microsoft 365 Business Basic. Now, if you really are kind of putting your feet in the water with Teams, you want to check how it works, you want to understand how some of the features are working, then you would be able to, for example, go for the free version initially, maybe, but again, there are limitations on that. So you can only have 60 minutes per call. You can only have 100 participants per meeting. So you might potentially find that slightly limiting to really test out the features on that version. So Microsoft have recently released what they call Microsoft Teams Essentials. So this, again, is a Teams only subscription. Doesn't really kind of include any of the additional Office applications, but it does give you quite a lot of the additional features within Teams itself. So it gives you, again, the unlimited group meetings for up to 30 hours. It also gives you the 300 participants there per meeting. And it, in addition to that, so using kind of Teams as well in your organization, it means that each user within your organization that's subscribed to this package has 10 gigs of cloud storage per user. And this will also give you the anytime kind of phone and web support for that package. So anything that goes wrong, you can raise a ticket and you can call Microsoft to try and get that issue resolved. Now, I'm just going to head back just to see whether there are any questions at this point. So currently, I'm not seeing any questions. So I am going to head back into my tab here. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of compare the Teams Essentials with the Microsoft 365 Business Basic, because as you can see here, we've got a cost of £3 per user per month. And then we've also got a cost for the Microsoft 365 Business Basic for £3.80 per user per month. So what do you get for your additional 80 pence here? Well, you actually get quite a lot for the additional 80 pence. And in my opinion, the Microsoft 365 Business Basic makes a lot more sense than going for the Microsoft Teams Essentials. And the reason for this is just the additional stuff you get for the money in terms of what you're paying kind of per month. Microsoft Teams Essentials, the only real kind of place where I can see that that would be kind of more value than potentially the 365 Business Basic is if you are using another kind of Office package, for example, and you don't want to confuse your users by making additional kind of services available by bringing in the Microsoft 365 Business Basic subscription. That might be the only place really where I can see that that might be something that would be, you know, kind of use really to change this. Because as you can see here, we get Teams meetings, but we get the recordings with them and the transcripts for those. So these are not available within Teams Essentials. But we also get web and mobile versions of Office apps. And I can tell you right now that these kind of web and mobile versions of Office apps by now are really, really fully featured. You know, they're really kind of good in terms of what you can do within them by now. You get a terabyte of storage per user with the Microsoft 365 Business Basic. You know, this would allow you to kind of store a huge amount of files really per user. You also get then on top of that the business class email, and this is what I mentioned earlier. Potentially, you know, you're not looking for email services because you may have another service in place, and that's maybe to save on confusion. That's where maybe you would look at the Teams Essentials, in my opinion. But really, you know, kind of I feel that it's a no-brainer to go for the Microsoft 365 Business Basic over the Microsoft Teams Essentials. So Microsoft 365 Business Standard, so anything above kind of the Business Basic, so the Microsoft 365 suite, so that includes the Business Premium, that includes the Enterprise versions, that includes the Education versions. They will all come with that version of Teams within them. Okay, so that's really the kind of main comparison I think that's to be made, especially for small businesses, is whether you go maybe for the new offering from Microsoft or whether you kind of go for the more traditional ones, which is the Microsoft 365 suite, going from the basic through to the standard to the premium, depending on your requirements. Okay, we'll just check if there are any additional questions. that have come in. Okay, none at all currently. So we're just going to now have a very quick look at what the difference is in terms of the Microsoft Teams version that has come in now in Windows 11. And I'm now going to stop sharing that tab, and I'm going to share my screen. So I actually have a version here that I'm using in order to demonstrate these kind of new differences, which is the Microsoft Teams desktop. The Microsoft Windows 11 home version. And this home version, in my opinion, has really kind of confused things slightly. So if you're using the enterprise version or the pro version, it's definitely possible to hide these things. So without further ado, I'm going to just share my screen here. So let's share my screen. Share that screen there. Okay, so let's minimize this. Okay, so as you can see here across the bottom of my screen, I've got my applications. Now, Windows 11 has included this chat here. So you can see that there's a chat kind of application, and this is a very basic application that's linked to your personal Microsoft account. So your Hotmail account, your Outlook account, and that brings in all the contacts as would have been potentially in your Skype personal account beforehand. Now, if I open Teams from this chat icon, I'm not going to go in here for a sec, but if I open Teams from this chat icon, I get a personal version of Teams, which is included in Microsoft 11 by default. And this is what the application looks like. So it's a kind of personal version of Microsoft Teams. And it's a kind of cut down version, really. And it's to take the place, in a way, of your Skype personal app. And you can use this Teams with other people. You can kind of chat with them, meet with them, and you can bring people you know onto Teams as well. Now, where this has kind of confused things is this is my personal account here, but you can see that there is also another Teams version here. So I can show you this because it is. There we go. So this other version of Teams is actually my work and personal kind of, so my company account. And the way to tell the difference is that this Teams has the all purple icon here, and the other Teams, which we'll be able to see there, has this purple and white icon. So two versions of Teams within the same operating system. If we look at the menu here and we type in Microsoft Teams, so we have Microsoft Teams for your work or school account. And if I look at the apps here, we have the Microsoft Teams, which has the white T in the middle, which is your personal one. And we have the one for work or school. Okay, so at that point, I am going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to invite any questions. We've come to the end of the live. So as I mentioned before, this is the first live that we've done. So, thanks very much for sticking with us. And, we hope that quick tip was useful for you to understand the difference between those different Teams versions. We will have a link to the slide with the link to the Microsoft site, which contains all the information about the different versions of Teams. So we'll leave that as well. And it just remains for me to say thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow, hopefully.